Hey listeners, as some of you know, I live in Hawaii. And as such, I thought, I live really close to the Battleship Missouri. I might as well show you guys it. You've probably seen this ship in the movie Battleship if you've watched it. It's really right, like maybe a mile or two from my house. So I thought, why not? Surprisingly, this ship saw combat all the way to 1992, where the military decided to use it in the Gulf War for its wow factor. These days, ships just aren't that big with that much firepower. This ship played a large role in World War II and was one of the main offensive battleships that saw combat throughout the Pacific Theater. Here we are on the walkway to the Battleship Missouri. You can see all the way from the stern to the bow. All those secondary 5-inch guns, you'll see Sea Whiz, and the 16-inch guns, 2 turrets in the front and 1 turret in the back, with lots of secondaries. This ship was remodeled after World War II to be able to compete with modern-day equipment with adding Tomahawk cruise missiles. Look at the size of these guns. You just really don't understand how large they are in a video. You have to see a person next to you to understand how freaking huge these are. Here's a cutaway of the gun. As you see, there are multiple levels with the ammo loaded from the bottom of the ship and the Citadel. To the top, this gun can fire every 30 seconds. And around the outside of the ship, here I am with some of the anti-aircraft guns, like in scene in Pearl Harbor, where the people are firing them. I'm going to go ahead and go below decks. The whole ship is not on limits to us. A lot of it is dirty and corroded, and they never opened it up to tourism. But the parts that I was able to go, I'm going to show you all of that. Here we are in little parts of the museum. The break room, now we're 2 decks below the top deck. Just taking a look around, and inside they've really done a good job of modeling this into a living museum, learning all about the ship. In fact, they have a 1/100th scale model right here of the Battleship Missouri, what it looked like in World War II before the modernization. You'll notice there's a lot more 5-inch secondary guns. There's only 2 now, and it looks like there used to be 6. Lots more anti-aircraft, which were replaced with cruise missiles and Sea Whiz. Some were just removed altogether, and biplane launchers, which was just removed with a deck. They didn't do anything here. They try to make things look like they did in World War II, like the snack bar. Look how cheap the prices were back then. They could get like soda pop for like 30 cents. Sweet. They also had their own book library. Lots of books. They could all rent them for free and bring them back. On ship, they had every commodity they needed. They had a bookstore. They had a library. They had a sort of like an amusement room with lots of board games and such. Wandering around the ship is really a lot of fun. Everything's in good condition that's on limits. They've done a really good job of keeping this place visitor friendly. It's really living history. I love going on this ship. Just going through some of these corridors. Here's one of the living quarters. Look how many people had to cram their stuff into such small spaces. Though the officers' cabins, which I'll show you soon, are really quite larger. Can you imagine trying to sleep in that? I mean, good grief, those sailors went through a lot. Here's just part of that little museum they have. I'm not the best photographer when it comes to taking video. Everything's a little bit shaky. I'm sorry about that. I'm much better at recording games than I am at recording life. Let's take a look around. Some cool stuff. This is the museum dedicated to the chiefs around the boat. Have a little video, lots of different plaques you can go around and read. I totally recommend visiting this museum. It's lots of fun. There's lots of cool pictures on the walls, like right here. The guns firing, people working around the ship, going through massive waves. This ship is currently residing in Pearl Harbor. And right next to it is the USS Arizona, which is sunk in the water next to it, which you can also visit as well. Walking around a bit more of the corridors here. If it weren't for the signs, it would be easy to get lost. Kind of disorienting. Just taking a look around, here's one of the kitchens that the guys worked in. I'm going to show you the outside now. We're going to go up. You'll notice that there's rangefinder devices, and you'll see numbers on the sides of the turret. Those numbers represent the number of rounds that were fired from each turret into Kuwait and the Gulf War. I'm as far onto the bow as I'm allowed to go, and I'm showing you a look around Pearl Harbor. A little bit quick, sorry about that. You can pause the video to see the different ships. There's cruisers and destroyers in bay right now. Take a look. There's those 16-inch guns. They are huge. And in front of me is the antenna, which was just restored, making it look just like it did before. Here's one of those huge rounds they fired. It is ginormous. When the ship was remodeled, they took away some of the 5-inch guns, but I'll show you the ones they left. There are 2 on the starboard side, right here. Really massive. They could hold 6 people each. And 2 on the port side. The ammo they fired is less impressive, but still amazing. Now I'm going to show you some of the more important officers' rooms that are way more spacious. They have their own bookshelves, their own telephone. Some of them have their own TV. They have carpeted floors. They're living the high life, I tell you. Much better to be an officer than an enlisted person on this ship, it looks like. Though some of them had to bunk up together, like here. The fire control officers, that is. Very spacious. They had a lot of workspace. Also, here's one of the 16 individual fire control rooms. Only one of them is open right now. All the other ones are closed or in other portions of the ship. Looks like they had to worry about fires quite a bit to have 16. Here is the break room / cafeteria for the officers. They all had tablecloths, chair covers. They had their own ice cream maker. They had their own soda pop dispenser. Yeah, they're living the high life in here, I tell you. And they turned this place into a museum. It even has a model of the original Missouri. Not the Battleship Missouri, but what came before World War I. Here we're going to go into the captain's mate. Second in command, he has his own office. He has his own bathroom. He has his own TV. He has several cabinets. He has a king-size bed and his own bathroom and shower. He had everything he needed. The captain's cabin is off limits to us, so this is as close as we're going to get to luxury on a battleship. He even has his own window view. Pretty nice. On this spot is where World War II ended, the surrender deck, where the representatives from Tokyo came and all the other allies. They came right underneath turret number 2, and they signed the papers, which I'll show you shortly. Here's some pictures of everyone about to sign the papers. Pretty neat being on the exact spot where the papers were signed. There's several commemorative plaques, the American flag that was flying at that time at the top of the ship, and the papers themselves, the instrument of surrender. Not replicas, these are the real deal. Right there is where World War II ended, folks. Here's some pictures of the different people who signed it in order. At the end of World War II, the anti-aircraft guns were replaced with Tomahawk cruise missiles, a bit more potent in my honest opinion. Now, they added 4 of these launchers, each of them that could fire 4, with replacement missiles below decks that they had to lug up here and throw into the tube to lock up and then fire. Many of these missiles were fired in the Gulf War. Another change they made was adding several close-in weapon systems to the ship. Here's some footage in the Vietnam War. Not from this ship, but from another one of how it works. Huge Gatling gun. It's actually really impressively sized. It's about twice as tall as I am, and I'm 6 feet tall. They're huge. Kind of cool to get to see those up close. Normally they're underneath a sheet or a cover on the military ships that are actually at Pearl Harbor that are currently working. Here we are on the primary observation deck. Next to me is one of the citadels where the captain would drive the ship behind 16 inches of concrete. You can see some of the cruisers and destroyers that are currently in port in Pearl Harbor. Gonna take a look around this side of the ship. You can see the entrance to the museum ship, and in front of us is the Arizona Memorial. And below us are turrets number 1 and 2, those huge 16-inch guns. Let's take a look at the citadel itself. That's a lot of fun to see. Now in World of Warships, when you get a citadel hit, this is one of the areas that would be considered the citadel. It is 16 inches thick, and heavy fighting, the driver, the captain, and whoever else was currently needed was drawn into this room. They had the door shut behind them. They could close the visibility slats, and they could use voice intercoms directly hardwired into the ship to communicate with anything they needed, including damage control, the lot. If they weren't under fire, they would use this room, which was right outside the main citadel. They had radar, all of the instruments you need, and a pretty nice view right there. That would be a lot of fun to be in if you're driving the ship, firing those huge, massive guns. There used to be anti-aircraft guns on top of the second turret number 2, but those were taken away in the remodernization. Yeah, here's another look through one of those slats that they could close and lock. They made the Citadel very, very secure. Like, only a direct hit is really going to penetrate that much of concrete. Let's take a look at some of the 5-inch guns here. Just take a look. These things are extremely massive. They took away a few of them in place of Tomahawk missiles and Sea Whiz for the Gulf War, but they're still, the ones that they left are still very potent, really cool to see. Well, I've basically shown you all I possibly can on the ship, the parts that you're allowed to tour. Hope you enjoyed just taking a look around what I live so close to. It is one true monster of a ship, a huge battleship. Those guns still amaze me. They are ginormous. If you enjoyed this video, consider like, commenting, and subscribing, folks. I'm just going to keep on pumping out new content every week. Getting pretty close to 1,000 subscribers. Blitz on, folks. Adios.